Okay, so this is a new video where we're going to cover off a few new topics. It kind of sort of extends from the previous video, although the first one was kind of more at a basic level, and this one is a little bit more advanced. Um, and we're going to be using the same application to start with from the end of the first video. So if you need to look at that, look in the notes to see how that went. Anyway, so in the last video we explored things such as integrating a simple staff app into the CMS using um, features of the CMS like app hooks, menu integration, front-end editing, placeholder fields, and toolbar integration. Um, and in this video I'd like to just show a couple of things that kind of naturally extend from that. One is I just want to introduce a nice little project called Django Easy Select 2, which makes it easy to make nicer backends for your customers or for your clients or whoever your stakeholders are. Um, the next thing I want to do is explore a very general, software development concept and a Django, if anything, topic. Loosely coupled model relationships has really nothing to do with Django CMS, but you're going to see how it's useful in this case. And then finally, I want to show you a little bit about preset values in toolbar invoked admin dialogues. So you might remember from the first video that I mentioned that having a contextual menu on the staff in order to edit their record was kind of pointless in the last video because you could just easily double click on the guy's name or the gal's name on their page to do the same thing. But I'm going to give you a more practical and more helpful reason why you might want to do that. Anyway, so let's just start with Django Easy Select 2. Just to show you that, I'm going to go to Betty's page and I'm going to double click on here, and you're going to see this dialog here looks a lot nicer than it did in the previous version of the in the earlier video. And basically, this is a nice little form widget which allows me to type in values to limit the remaining choices, and then I can choose one. And this is basically leveraging the excellent JavaScript library called Select2, and it's been wrapped up into a Django tool set, if you will, and it's really super easy to use. I'm going to show you really quickly. Here's the admin for my staff member. I remember it was when we left in the last video, it was basically empty. In this case, the only thing I want to draw your attention to is this one single line right here that if I add to my admin will basically prettify all my foreign keys and my many-to-many form fields to be powered by Select2, and it makes a big difference in the way that your apps look to your stakeholders. So I just want to introduce that. It's not really anything to do with Django CMS, but it's helpful. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is what I meant by loosely coupled model relationships. So in my app, you'll see that I've added a new app called News, and this was added. It's a custom app. It was written very quickly. It looks very blog-like, right? It shows a list of news items. Obviously, this is all placeholder text. You can click on one of the titles, and then you can go to a dedicated page as determined by the slug, and it shows the whole story. Very basic app, unstyled as well. But I want to draw your attention to down here. I have related staff. Now, in related staff, I would be able to connect more than one or more, or zero more really, staff members to the article. In this case, I'm trying to find one where I've connected more than one. I think this one. No, maybe it's the last one. So here I have multiple staff member connected to this news item, and that's a nice relationship, right? So the idea is you could connect these staff members, and then in theory, I could go to Charles's page and we would see those news posts um, as a back reference. Uh, and if I did a straight many-to-many table between news posts and staff, then I would have a strictly coupled relationship between them, and every time I connected one from one side, it would be connected on the other side as well. And that's great for many things. In this particular example, what I'm showing you here is that I have in a previous project I had a situation exactly like this, where we have news items, we have a news editor who's responsible for putting up all the stories, and it was their job to identify staff that are mentioned in the article and identify them in the model so that they point back to the staff. Now the problem was that we had some staff who had many stories, and they wanted to pick and choose which ones were going to be shown on their page. So in some cases they wanted to remove them. Now this puts us in a situation, if we only used a many-to-many table, and say in this case Charles Cook wanted to remove some of those relationships, then the article would no longer forward link to Charles Cook. And of course, by having that relationship, Charles Cook had too many entries on his page. So by loosely coupling, what we do basically is we create two many-to-many relationships, sort of. What I do, well, let me show a diagram real quick. So what I have here is, down here the pink boxes represent some of the tables that are created when I do my news model application. And the green ones represent some of the staff tables or models. So what we can see here is news item has a news item staff through table, which was automatically created by Django, the ORM. And basically it points to the news article via this property, and it also points to the staff. So this is a normal many-to-many relationship. Now, in order to decouple, I created a second many-to-many relationship via something, a brand new model called clipping, which is not an automatic table at all. It's actually something I put together. But it points to news item and it points to staff. I also have some other things it can point to, and I'll show you what those are for in a moment. But the idea is we have two many-to-many tables. One records kind of the relationships between the news articles back to the staff, and the other one does the opposite. It records the relationships of the news items on the staff. And normally this would be very redundant, but since we're doing this loosely coupled thing, what I do is I sense changes here and via signals, and when the signal detects that there has been a change to this table, the code will then check to see if the relevant staff member already has a relationship to this news item, and if it does, it just ignores it. But if it doesn't, then it will set it up in the clipping table. And then when I'm drawing out the staff member pages, I only refer to this table. I do not refer to this table. In theory, actually I suppressed it, but there is a back reference from staff member automatically created when I set up this many-to-many from news item to staff, but I've suppressed that relationship. I've suppressed the related name because I don't need it. So anyway, that's kind of the, I don't know, theory or modeling of it. Let me just talk a little bit about the URL in the file. So this clipping object is something we attach to a staff member's page, and it can point to a news item, or it can point to an external URL, which is just going to be basically a text field or a char field. And then, or it could also contain a file, so you could download something. And let me show you what that looks like. So let me go to Adam Anderson's page. He has a photo, he has an external link, and he has a couple of news posts. And now these are examples of the clippings object that we were using, and the different media types it contains. this is only one way to implement it. It may not be the cleanest. I think some people would probably suggest that you should use polymorphism and etc. But this was a quick and dirty way to get this done, and it works very well. So I'm going to stick with it. Now, the loosely coupling part, let me just show you what that looks like. So here in the clipping model is where I have, this is the clipping model, and you can see it just contains a pointer to staff, a pointer to the news item, a pointer to a file. This is the title of the object. Here's the external link. So down here at the bottom I have my signal handler, and this is where it listens for changes on the through table that was set up by the news item many-to-many to staff. And then when it detects it, and then it basically triggers this function here, this method here. And then what it does is it just, like I said earlier, it looks to check and see if the relevant staff member mentioned in the change already has the relationship. It just drops it on the floor. But if it doesn't have the relationship, then it goes ahead and sets it up as a clipping relationship. So it creates a duplicate relationship pointing back. So that's enough about the loosely coupling stuff. It works really nicely, and that's great. So this brings me to the final topic, which is around how do we use the contextually sensitive menus here on this page to maybe make it easier to manage these clippings. So as I have these clippings, one of the things I can do is I can manually create a clipping. I don't have to use the loose coupling and the signaling, etc. I can also manually set up a relationship. So if I wanted to, I could, and this is using the standard Django inlines for the foreign key relationship, and it works pretty well. The only problem with it is it's a lot of stuff down here, and I had to make my window wider in order to fit it all. Otherwise, it looked kind of bunched up. And as these titles here on this file get really long, then this is going to be basically impossible to keep on the window without scrunching it up. So it could be better, right? It could be better. But nonetheless, this is useful and functional, and I could easily create a relationship here to another news article and save it, and then boom, we would get an extra article right here. You can see added to. So it works. Let's make it better. Okay, so I'm going to go to my my view for the staff detail page, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a menu break, as simple as that, and then I'm going to go ahead and create this extra menu item here. Now let's see what this does. So I'm going to refresh. Oh, lovely. Let's see why we have an error here. Oh, okay. My comment got uncommented. Anyway, so we can now invoke refresh the page, invoke the menu. We now have this extra menu item here, and I call it attach new clipping. And basically all this is doing is bringing up the admin view or form for adding a clippings clipping. This is for the clippings application, and this is the clipping model, and this is the URL together. This is the URL for adding one in the admin. So it works great. Like I said, let's try it out. All right, so we can add a new clipping. Now we have all the space in the world that we need. We can scroll up and down if we need to. The only problem with this is that I'm on Adam's page, and I now have to select Adam from the list. It's a required field, and I'm already there. So it'd be nice if it was pre-selected, right? But the rest of it's pretty useful. Like I said, I have all the space in the world that I need, and I can set up a relationship. But I think we can do better, so let's try. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Now I'm going to turn on the better version. So what is the better version? The better version is it's the same thing, effectively, except I'm adding a get parameter to the admin URL. In this case, I'm saying, yeah, go to the same URL that we had before. But in this case, let's go ahead and preset the value of staff to the object ID of our current view. So we're going to basically be setting the staff to our current object's ID. So what does that do? Well, it does exactly what we want. So now we can attach a new clipping, and Adam Anderson is pre-selected, right? So my users don't have to fumble around with this. It's already going to be set for them, contextually aware of where it is, and I can fill out the rest of this and hit save, and it works great. If you know, and once you've done that, then what I'd probably recommend you do is go ahead and come in here and maybe turn off this this inline, admin form inline, just because it really kind of crowds things up a little bit. Now I actually have it enabled because I'm using admin sorting, and you can change the order of these items, which is nice. That's another, if you're not familiar with it, you should check out admin sortable. Another similar one, which is a good one to use, is admin M2M sortable, which allows you to sort many-to-many relationships inside the object. But anyway, that's a bit of a digression. So the idea is that you can use these contextual menus to not only edit a form, but you can also start attaching your foreign key relationships and presetting the relationship when you invoke it to make things easier on your users. So that's all I have for you. I hope that was helpful. Check the notes for links to some of the things I've mentioned. And if you have any tips, please share them in any way you can. You know, video like this, or just a blog post somewhere, or just type it in at the Google Plus community, Django virtual user groups. So hope to see you there. Bye.